Education Committee. We'll start off with, are there any bill introductions for Education Committee? I'm seeing none. So committee, we are going to move right into our action, and that is continuation of the hearing on Senate Bill 340, and that's amending the Kansas Promise Scholarship Act by clarifying responsibilities. Committee, when we left yesterday, we were in the midst of discussion. We have a motion on the floor for the balloon amendment number 5, and that is that we cannot limit for a particular program. And in the midst of the discussion, so we did have a motion and a second on that, and I believe the motion was Senator Petty and the second was Senator O'Shea. Am I correct on that? Okay. So in the midst of discussion, the request was made by Senator Gossage. Well, since we're talking about fields of study, could we please see balloon number 8, where we did see that was emailed to each of you, and that was made public, and that was the listing of fields of study. So we are going to resume where we are with regard to specifically balloon number 5. So I'm going to start by asking Tamara, could you please read that balloon for the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Balloon number 5 would amend page 2 of Senate Bill 340, starting in line 35, and it would add to the rules and regulations established by the State Board of Regents that no institution may limit scholarships to certain promise-eligible programs at such institution or award less than the full Kansas Promise Scholarship amount for which a student qualifies, as long as funds are available in the Kansas Promise Scholarship Program Fund.
Okay. So being back on number 5, and since you have had an opportunity to also be aware of what that additional list of, so the 5th field of study is, do I have any further or additional conversation, questions specifically about balloon number 5? And again, the purpose of that was so that an institution can't hold off students that are interested. Perhaps they've already got their application in, they filled out FAFSA, they're eligible in part or in whole for funding, but they can't be pushed aside if an institution is trying to fill perhaps a program that has lower enrollment or for whatever reason they might come up with. You know, we did hear from Jim Gnant that the technical schools, at least one of them, was looking at maybe paying a portion of the Promise Scholarship for the first semester and giving them more if they were successful the first semester, giving them more funds the second. We don't want that. If they're eligible, then those institutions need to come up with a different way to reward or award a student, not the scholarship. So the institution processes, once FAFSA's been completed, they don't size up what that amount of that scholarship would be. So yes, Senator Straub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of related here, if an institution can't, redirect monies to certain programs, how is the original 10 million divided amongst our 19 community colleges, and how many technical schools do we have?
The way it's divided is, and in fact, we have that as a part of this bill, is when the payout is. What occurred this first semester is institutions were just sent a chunk of money at the start of the semester, and then it was backed out as far as being directed toward the students. This has always been designed as a first come, first serve. And that's true, was supposed to be true for all, for the community colleges, the technical colleges, as well as the not-for-profits.
So let me get this straight. So one community college in particular could have applicants for these programs far more than any other than any of the other schools. Is that correct?
It could, and that could be that could be driven by a number of things. It could be driven by how much they promote and market. It could be by what the demand is for certain programs within their community area or their service area. It gets back to just about, I would say most other scholarships tend to be whatever is the evaluation criteria and what students apply. We know in colleges and universities, there are scholarships out there that students never apply for because they don't know about it. But it is very much driven by how it is processed. And some institutions have done a better job of processing applications than others, but it's always been designed as a first come, first serve.
Okay, so even though the scholarship program is need-based, the process of applying for it is first come, first served.
I think you could partially say it's need-based. They must fill out FAFSA. If they are Pell eligible, then if they're not 100% Pell eligible, then that remaining portion. But it does have a cap as far as income based on number of people in the family. So it is that middle group that tends to not necessarily be a 4.0 student, doesn't have all kinds of discretionary funds. So it is designed for that. And it is, and that's one of the reasons we made sure with the language in this bill that institutions can and will accept applications at any point during the year. So we do know that there are already high school students that are filling out FAFSA and starting to apply, at least those that know what their path's going to be after graduation from high school. Yes?
So just so I think I understand this correctly, say there is a student who has the greater need at Pratt Community College, and you have a student who has a lesser financial need at Johnson Community College. If the Johnson Community College student applies for the scholarship first, they would be awarded it prior to the Pratt Community College student who also has applied but didn't apply before the other student and has a greater need.
Well, each of the institutions operate separately. So they are processing just for their students. They determine within the institution what the student is eligible for. They also evaluate if they are receiving any other types of aid, and they can provide additional aid to students. So it is, when we say first come, first serve, that's true in every single institution. What we know to be true for last semester as well as this semester, no one has been turned away from any scholarship because we have more than enough funding. So anyone that has filled out FAFSA, there hasn't been an error code, it's completed, they have been processed and have received. That was an early on concern because it looked like the technical schools were going through their allotment faster. And that's one of the reasons we're moving away from an allotment to the student gets processed, and then the institutions at specific given dates turn in, these are how many we've processed and for what amount. And then the Board of Regents reimburses or basically funds those that have been distributed. Other questions? Yes, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my apologies because I had to leave early. So,
Okay.
on the limiting the scholarships to so that no institution may limit a scholarship, can you tell me exactly why this was? I'm assuming it was so if there was a more expensive project that they're not funneling students into that, but can I get some more information?
The information, and I'll certainly ask someone from the Board of Regents from our community colleges or for our privates. But what we don't want to have happen is we know that, as an example was made, dental hygiene is a very expensive program because of the tools and instruments needed. We also have that in some of the building trades, expensive tools and materials. So we can't just process those that come in for a certain program, but it is as the applications come in, as the student completes that process with FAFSA, that there's that quick turnaround. What we want is students in the state, there is funding there, If they've completed the process, we want them to know quickly so they're not searching around and trying to decide. So I will defer to Dr. Flanders as well as Heather Morgan. Is there anything in this that I've missed?
Thank you, Chair Baumgartner, members of the committee, Blake Flanders. This scholarship is designed that a student qualifies, they come in, they get the scholarship. So the institution should not have discretion. I think that's what, to say, well, I'm going to select you because you're in this program, but we're going to wait on all of you. So that's what that's going to stop. So it'll just be, I mean, first come, first serve. They're all within one institution. So it's really not a comparative across institutions. It's more inside the institution. If you come in and you qualify, they measure that delta between the total cost of the program and the, you know, maybe what your aid was, you get that immediately.
I'll just add that Heather Morgan Community Colleges, we don't want any early childhood, for example, might be a lower cost program. We don't want everybody to say, oh, we're only going to give it to computer science people and not early childhood.
Yes, Senator Sykes.
And thank you for clarifying. And I guess my concern is, as we're looking, and I think wanting the institutions to have that flexibility so that we're not, and I don't think we're going to do this, but as programs evolve and we have different needs in our workforce, I don't want it so tied that we couldn't say, this would be a better fit for early childhood, or this would be a better fit for agriculture. So my question is, how do we make sure everyone is getting an opportunity for those dollars, but as we're more successful in fulfilling their workforce, how do we possibly at that point adjust those fields of study?
And I think we have that in Balloon 8, but go ahead, Dr. Flanders.
So I would say that there's a difference between the field of study and the individual program. So the individual program is actually where the funding occurs. They're within a field of study. Every program, as was discussed yesterday, has to be high wage, high demand, or critical need. So they should qualify on their own merits. If the program is not, we really shouldn't be giving any promised scholarship towards that program.
And so I think that does get back to, this will be flexible. There's going to be some points in time, and it's going to be true for the institutions. If a student completes a certificate program or degree program and cannot get a job, that's going to be one of the issues that they're going to have to really revisit, and they're going to have to constantly be visiting. Is that something that fits that high wage and or high demand and or critical need? So they will continue to do that. I will tell you, initially we thought that CRNAs, there's a high demand for that. There's a critical need for that. It is not a high paying wage. And the thought originally last year was that we would have, that would just skyrocket, that there would be tons of people that flooded to that. They did not. What we already know from first semester data is they did not. Yep, Senator Suellentrop, and then Senator Petty, did you have your hand up? No, okay. Senator Suellentrop.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On that note, a couple questions. Did these courses all exist prior to the legislation?
Not the courses, but the programs.
Or any of them developed?
The certificate programs or the degree programs had to be there. I will tell you the one thing that has changed is the process that the Board of Regents has gone through to codify the 2+2, so the transfer. We made it very specific that there had to be an articulation agreement with a specific university to include those. But yes, they needed to exist. And in fact, we heard testimony yesterday from Mr. Lindsay that no university could jump into a fifth category unless they had a program, a certificate or degree program already in existence in one of those other areas.
If I may, just
You may.
you pointed out the lack of interest in a particular program where everybody thought there'd be a
CRNA.
much more higher interest. What kind of collaboration or analysis between the institutions and/or with any of us had been done to determine what the goal or outcome could possibly be? I mean, do we have any idea, just like that, a disappointment, they didn't turn out, didn't show up, didn't apply, whatever the case may be? Was there any collaboration or any analytical data developed in saying, hey, this is what we think we can accomplish?
There was in the context of the Board of Regents did go through, and so when they came up with those 4 fields of study initially, we knew that those were fields of study that did include certificate or degree programs that really did have high wage, high demand, critical need. And before they could pick the 5th program, it had to fit that criteria, and that did have to have approval from the Board of Regents. Now,
So the
the
hope
only
was,
reason the only reason CRNA was included is because we knew it absolutely high demand, critical need, but we knew there was a little bit of hiccup because the CRNA programs typically are just 5 credit hours, but it is that latter, so that is a base healthcare program that feeds right into the LPN as well as the RN. So all of those would apply. We just thought that there would be an interest in that. So, you know, it may be that the regents decide to pull the CRNA from the list for the different institutions. Are there any other questions? Yes, Senator Gossage.
Forgive me, Madam Chair, I had to step out. I had something in my eye, so I may have missed something. So are we still on balloon 5?
We are actually on, yes, balloon 5.
Balloon 5, okay.
Yep. Okay, I am not seeing any further questions or discussion. So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? I'm seeing no opposition, so balloon 5 passes. I am going to ask us to move to balloon number 8, simply because we've already, 1, received it, 2, we've already had discussion about it. So again, I will call on our reviser to give a quick review on balloon number 8.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Balloon number 8 would amend page 4 of the bill in section 3. And this would clarify that when an educational institution designates an additional field of study, it needs to be that additional field of study can be designated if the promise eligible programs within such field of study are 2-year associate degree programs or career and technical education certificates or standalone programs approved by the State Board of Regents that correspond to jobs that are high wage, high demand, or critical need in the community. The institution already offers programs in such field of study and is one of the following fields of study: agriculture, food and natural resources, education and training, law, public safety, corrections and security, or distribution and logistics.
So I guess just as a quick review, it has multiple guardrails. So first of all, there already has to be those existing programs. The other guardrail is the Board of Regents will verify that it fits that criteria of high wage, high demand, and or critical need. And the third guardrail is it has to be in one of those already identified fields of study. Are there questions about this particular amendment? Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At first blush, it would appear that we've moved away from our original intent of this bill, which was, my understanding, lots of discussion, about which 4 areas or which 4 programs would be included, and that was the guardrail that could only be used for this. And as is stated down here in letter B, it says to designate an additional program, you must have one of these original 4 areas of study. We are striking that, basically, as far as I'm concerned, ignoring that you need to do any of these for the Promise Act, and you can kind of come up with your own as long as it meets this other criterion. These now new 5 areas, and I guess I'm kind of scratching my head, like, basically, couldn't the Promise Act be used for pretty much anything? I'm trying to understand what would not be, I'm trying to think of a program that would not fit under these 9 now categories.
Okay, keep in mind, it's not 9 categories. So the first 4 categories were in last year's bill. There was a 5th category. Last year, we thought it was field of study, but the language that no one caught from the reviser was it was program, not a field of study. The intent was for it to be a 5th field of study of choice. And so what this does is it puts back what the original intent was, is there's a 5th field of study, but it has to be from that list. So are there areas, are there certificate programs and degree programs that are offered in technical colleges, community colleges, and are private not-for-profit? There are. And I will call on, again, someone from the Board of Regents, the community colleges, or the not-for-profits, or the technical, to tell us which ones those are. I think right off the bat, am I correct, in hospitality and food service, right off the bat is one of those that's not on that list. And pretty much all of them have some version of that. Go ahead.
Scott Smathers with the Board of Regents. Hospitality would be one of the big fields of study that is not included in this list. And remember, they're only going to be able to select 1 of the remaining 5 at the colleges. Also, another area might be cosmetology and areas along that description. Those are probably the 2 biggest areas that I can think of right off the bat, those type of things. I'll say kind of more service area type would not be included. We're dealing more with what we would call the primary jobs in the industries and manufacturing and IT and areas like that, healthcare, things like that.
Okay.
You just said healthcare, but healthcare is one of the
4.
One
Yes,
of the
ma'am. I'm
4.
sorry.
That's
I'm sorry.
okay.
I was including in the list of potential. They have the 4 primary programs, which they have, which have
The 5
healthcare,
electives.
and then they have the 5 options, of which they only get to choose 1. And so those are the type of things that the whole program is geared more around. What I'd say the manufacture, as I said, manufacturing, IT, and that's the whole general scope of the program.
Thank you for answering that question. And my second question, Madam Chair, you've done a really good job of explaining the reasoning behind each of these. Can you give us, or can somebody give us the reasoning for saying you no longer have to have any of the 4 initial, but you can offer one of the options?
We're going to go to the revisers. I'm seeing heads shake no, that we didn't get rid of. So could you clarify that, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So the senator is correct that if you look at the bottom in subsection B, we are actually striking that. But if you go up to line 12, it uses the language in addition to the fields of study provided in the previous section, which would be those 4 sections. So the bill is, even though it's striking the explicit language that it's laid out each category one by one, the bill is still contemplating those original 4.
When you,
Senator Gossage.
thank you. May I ask a question of the,
You may ask a question to me, and I will call on Tamara
Thank you.
to answer it.
Madam Chair, let me read this again, but I'm not reading that it's a requirement that you have to have one of the 4. Am I missing that somewhere? As it was a requirement before, it looks like we're striking that.
So Tamara, go ahead.
So big picture, the Board of Regents still requires those 4 fields of study: information technology and security, mental and physical health care, advanced manufacturing and building trades, and early childhood education and development. And then this section 3 would allow the educational institutions, in addition to those fields of study, an institution may designate an additional field of study. So
They have to have something existing for it to be an additional.
correct.
And they must have what?
They must have a program, be it certificate or degree, in at least one of the other categories, one of the other 4 pre-existing fields of study.
And is that referenced earlier in the bill? I'm just trying to find out where does it specifically say that? I'm not reading in that very first paragraph. It says, in addition to the fields of study provided in KSA 2021. So is that where the 4 are identified?
It is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think this is a question for Tamara. And it actually goes, I appreciate this bullet amendment. I think it actually does narrow quite a bit. But my question is just making sure that we're covering all of our bases, or standalone programs approved by the State Board of Regents that correspond to jobs that are high wage, high demand, or critical need in the community. Do we need to clarify at this point? And I know that would also go up to earlier in the bill that it has to be that 2-year degree program, or is that somewhere else in the bill? Like, I know that's our intent, but I'm just wanting to, like, do we need to add something to that?
Are you speaking to the issue of high wage, high demand, critical need?
Well, it's more that, or standalone programs approved by the State Board of Regents. And I do not believe our Board of Regents would approve something that would be, I'm just saying, a law degree. I don't think they're going to do that, but do we need to put something in the language to make it narrow? Because I know our intent is that 2-year associates or just certificate, but I'm wondering, because we put that or in there, if it needs to have more clarification.
We'll call on Tamara, and then if someone from the Regents or from community colleges or technical colleges wants to pipe up, we'll welcome that. Tamara.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this language actually mirrors the definition of promise eligible program by using the 2-year associate degree program or career and technical education certificates or standalone programs approved by the Board of Regents. That's all in the definition already of promise eligible program, which is the definition that they're currently operating under.
And I think that goes back, do we need to also adjust that definition to make sure? And I would be happy for the Board of Regents to answer that.
So, and while Blake's coming up here, just want to make sure from Tamara. So this, with this balloon, number 8, it would state that twice with regard to high wage, high demand, critical need. Okay?
Yeah, so the short answer would be no. You really don't need to do that. The standalone programs are much shorter than 2 years, and certified nurse aide would be one of those. The institution, there's an eligible institution list, and so you really don't really need to put that in. If you'd like to, you certainly can, but it's really not necessary.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious what that standalone program's, that definition. So thank you for the clarification.
Senator Petty.
Just along that same line, doesn't anything that we do as we move forward in this bill, doesn't it go back to the definition of what, I mean, it refers back to the definition of the promise eligible program that
It
is on
does.
page 1? Okay.
Yes, it does. I'm not seeing any other questions. Do I have a motion and a second on balloon number 8 with regard to field of study?
I'll make a motion favorable for blue number 8.
Okay, I have a motion from Senator Petty. I have a second from Senator Sykes. Is there any additional conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. At this time, I do want to make sure that we get to, let's do balloon number 1. When we started our hearing last week, the first thing that we heard from the reviser as she went through the bill was that there were 2 technical fixes that needed to be made. I did make the request during that hearing that she go ahead and prepare those technical fixes. So this is balloon number 1. And Senator Straub, those will be, as soon as that balloon gets to our committee assistant, she will email that to us. Cindy, have you received it yet? Okay, so Cindy's received it. She's getting ready to send it. Okay, I see that we've received it. So Tamara, why don't you go ahead and step us through it? As I recall, it addresses the last page and the second to the last page.
That's exactly correct, Madam Chair. Thank you. So on page 9, in line 13, the word determining is actually in the wrong spot. Instead of coming before the colon, it needs to come in the next line after the colon, which you can see in the balloon. And then on the very last page, that subsection E in italics was supposed to be come out of the bill before the bill even got introduced and was inadvertently missed. So I would ask that you strike that provision as well.
Okay. Committee, are there questions for our reviser on the technical fixes? Senator Sykes?
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Senator Petty. Last chance for any discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. At this time, I will ask that we please introduce or share balloon number 10, I believe it is. JG, are you seeing it? Are we seeing it? Do we have it? Not yet. I just got it. You just got it. Okay. So thank you. Tamara, would you please go ahead and review balloon number 10?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Balloon number 10 starts at the bottom of page 5 and goes on to the top of page 6. So currently, the way the bill is written, that last line on page 5, Kansas Promise Scholarship awards shall be used only to pay for up to a total of 68 credit hours over the lifetime of the student. Balloon number 10 would add, or a total of $20,000 in Kansas Promise Scholarship awards, whichever occurs first over the lifetime of a student. So it would add in that dollar max as well as the credit hour max.
Okay. That was put in there. There's concern about, we do have some programs, one in particular that's more than $80,000. In looking at what tuition is at our Regents institutions, the $20,000 for 2 years gets really close to if you were just to have a university experience. So what it really does is it sets that ceiling that it can't be more than. So again, for the interest of making sure that we are controlling what those potential expenses could be. Are there any questions about this amendment? I am seeing none. Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Senator Petty. Do I have a second? I have a second from Senator O'Shea. Is there any discussion in addition? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. I am going to now ask, because I need a little bit of clarification and I need a little assistance. I believe the last balloon that was requested is balloon number 3, and that was discussed by our institutions as well as the Board of Regents. So are we in agreement with that? Okay, and this, I believe, will address balloon number 3, and then I'll ask if there are any additional balloon amendments. And I think just for the benefit of the committee, I think there were originally, Tamara can correct me, maybe 16 amendments. And we made the groups get together, discuss them, and really make sure what really needed to happen to help us move forward. So I do appreciate the work of the institutions as well as the Board of Regents in working through those agreements. I think some of what we found could actually be addressed in rules and regs that the Regents will be working on. So I appreciate that we were able to kind of rein this in. So I think everybody has received balloon number 3. Tamara, if you could please do an explainer on that.
Thank you. Balloon number 3 would amend the definition section of the bill on page 1 in line 32. The definition of promise-eligible program. This would add in the requirements that promise-eligible programs must be approved by the State Board of Regents and must be high-wage, high-demand, or critical need.
Okay. So there we have that third layer. We've got the triumvirate, that it must be approved by the Board of Regents. And so institutions will work with the Board of Regents. But again, those programs in the different fields of study, be 2-year or certificate or 2+2, they must fit into that category of high wage, high demand, and critical need. So that will be the lens that whole process will go through, and there will be this kind of ongoing making sure we're meeting the needs, as well as what are those jobs that are open in the state that we need trained workers for. And I would welcome if the Board of Regents or the institutions have anything to add on that. It's just a third layer by having that in the definition. Are there any questions? I'm seeing none. Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Senator Petty. Do I have a second? A second from Senator Sykes. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. At this time, I will ask, are there any amendments from the committee for introduction? Yes, Senator Gossage.
Madam Chair, I don't have an amendment, but I do have a question.
Yes.
We had discussed about what a part-time student means, and I need to go back and look at the entire bill. But can we talk about eligibility again? I don't think we've actually addressed who's eligible in this, and maybe because that has not changed.
There was only one change, I believe, with regard to eligibility. When we were looking at the ceiling of income, we put for a two-person family, and we added that it could be a one-person as well as a two-person. So again, that was put in there for clarification for the institutions so that they knew if it was a child that was emancipated or if it was an adult that was a single-person family, they still fit that criteria.
And was that one of the balloons?
No, it was not. That's in this bill. And so just as a clarification, that part-time definition, there was a balloon for that. We did not have a motion or a second, so it stays silent and is just what's in this.
So what I would like to address is something that you brought up that I did not know. We know that there is a real need for nurses in our state. And you mentioned in the nursing program, it's typically a 5 credit hour per semester program. Is that accurate?
There is the CNA, which is the very lowest category, Certified Nurse Assistant. And that ladders up. It can ladder up, or an individual can just, it's a selective admission, but apply for an associate's RN degree.
And again, is that accurate about the 5 credit hours?
It is accurate.
Was the intent to, because it says healthcare as one of the original 4 or 5, was that the intention for that nursing program? But the fact that it's 5 credit hours per semester, has that been a stumbling block for these people to apply for this scholarship?
I'm going to go ahead and let someone from the community colleges or from the Board of Regents address that.
Heather Morgan, Kansas Community Colleges, the way that we've addressed it is, if you're getting your CNA, then the next step up is a CMA. So what we're suggesting is you take your 5-hour CNA class and then you either add a first aid class with it, because that's also, in the field and beneficial, so then you have 6 hours, or you go ahead and get your CMA and CNA so that you're going to be able to be hired in at a higher wage at that long-term care facility, because you're going to be able to pass meds and do the basic CNA work. So we figured out ways around it. It's not a stumbling block, and quite frankly, people are entering the field at a higher wage, which I think is what we all want.
Yes. Senator Solentrop, did you have a question or a statement?
I do have a question. You made a request about any further amendments.
Yes.
Before that, what's your intention to work the bill? When do you feel like you're going to
We are working the bill.
Excuse me.
We worked it yesterday and today.
pass
And-
it out? Pass it out.
Well, it would be my hope if we can pass it out today. I'm thinking, assuming that you would like to make some type of amendment. So let's hear it. So let's keep the
Do it on the floor
discussion.
of the Senate too, but, in consultation with you and some others,
Right.
I would like to discuss a cap.
Okay, so are we talking about the funding of the 10 million? Okay,
The total funding of the entire,
right. The 10 million, which was what was budgeted for this year and is budgeted for next year. And I think I'm comfortable in sharing. I don't know if the regents are comfortable in hearing this, but yesterday, after the committee hearing, when we were working this bill, what we did hear from the executive director is if the committee wants to set a hard cap and keep it at the 10 million, then they will work toward that. Or if you would like to reduce the amount from the 150% to a different percentage, I think that we still have, I'm going to say 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and start that discussion. So are you wanting to strike the line of the 150%, or are you wanting to change that percentage? And I will,
I would like to put a total cap on the program in some sort of a conceptual amendment,
okay,
maxing out at 20 million,
okay,
period.
okay. So changing it,
So it can go up certain percentages, it can stay flat, can fluctuate, but the maximum cap would be at that level.
Okay.
Again, that's just,
but I'm thinking you also want it to have, and our revisor will help us on this, it also has to be appropriated. You want to make sure that that's in there, okay? And I saw Senator Petty's hand up.
And this is a question concerning that conceptual idea. So is that, you're talking about a maximum of 20 million any calendar year?
I assume it would have to be after this next year, because this, unless I'm assuming you want to maintain that it's 10 million next year also. And then that third year is when the cap would occur. Am I correct in that?
correct,
Okay?
correct. We would have to come back and amend the legislation to increase it any further, to raise the cap.
I've got Senator Sykes, and then we'll go to Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this may be a question for Heather or Dr. Flanders. My question is, with the students who are currently receiving the Promise Scholarship, with this cap, would we be able to make sure they finish those programs?
Heads are shaking, and I will say that part of the discussion after the meeting yesterday is if we continue in the modest trajectory that we're in right now, and I'm going to remind folks that 2 weeks ago in our hearing of higher ed by the numbers, we know that our community colleges have a declining enrollment. We do have an increase in enrollment with our technical colleges. But in a discussion after our meeting yesterday, if we continue in just the trajectory we are in right now, the third year at the most would be 9 million. Because if we go the 4.5 million for this fiscal year, and a modest increase up to the 6 million, that 150 would just take us to 9. And that's why I don't think, we've already heard from the Board of Regents, they do not have a concern about capping it at 20. So we know that there has been that discussion with the community colleges as well as technical colleges and privates. So other questions or discussion about the cap? Senator Gossage, and then we'll go right back to you. Oh,
I'm sorry, she was.
I'm sorry. We'll put you on the list. Senator Petty, then Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm just, again, when we're talking about a financial cap for a bill, then that, whatever point in time, 5 years, we're talking about, so we're talking about total expenditures over the life of this bill, basically. Is that correct?
I'll go ahead and call on Senator Suellentrop on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It does not mean we could not raise it in the future if the program is wildly successful. It just gives us a stopping point to review the program and make that determination.
Again, total expenditures for the life of this program, because at that point, when, as I'm hearing, when 20 million is reached, then then this legislation would have to be reintroduced and reconsidered. Am I going down a rabbit hole here, or is that correct?
Well, I will say this. I think that the stopgap that we have was built in there, and quite frankly, I'm the one that insisted on it, and that is that the payments are going to be quarterly. And so by the time legislature meets each year in January, there's going to be a sense from the regents as far as what's been expended, what's been encumbered, and it was designed specifically so that if there is a need to address it, we don't get in a situation like we were with SB 155, the Career and Tech Ed, so that we are never going to be in a situation where we're not going to fund what's obligated or encumbered. That we will have ample time during the legislative session to address a need for the future year if we should ever get to the $20 million cap. Blake Flanders, and then we're going to have to wrap this up somewhat.
So I'm hearing a couple different things. I think Senator Petty talked about, would the 20 million be for the life of the program? And I think what we were thinking about, or what I heard, was it's for annually, that it wouldn't increase more than 20 million annually. Or is it the life of the program?
Senator Suellentrop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It would be for the life of the program. My anticipation is that we would do a thorough analysis of the success of the program and then further allocate any additional resources to continue it and or expand it.
Okay, I guess I need a clarification on the life of the program because the program gets funded each year. And what we have built into this is for the first 2 years, it will be $10 million each year. So when I hear life of the program, I'm not quite certain about that because it's an ongoing program. So are you saying something other than at every single year it is, I guess, explain your life of the program? And I am calling on you, Senator Suellentrop.
It was anticipated it's going to take several years to reach these levels.
To expend 10 million.
Correct.
Okay.
And or up to 20. And so I didn't want to give a blank check to future legislators to increase the level of funding without a more thorough review. In our discussion, you indicated that you'd received some sort of a format of reporting. Right. And again, I've not been made aware of that or been able to see it so that I can determine what analysis there could be to the success of the program and or the demand of the workforce in the marketplace. Okay. And so this is a pretty fluid program. And I think that there ought to be a stopping point at least one time going forward to say, okay, is this focused to where we want it, how we want it? Is it accomplishing what we want? And then if so, carry on. I'm not going to get in the way of developing a talented workforce for our employers around the state.
Okay. I would tell you that every single year, it's going to have to go through the process because the funds have to be appropriated. So the report comes to the education committees of the House and the Senate. There's a draft version. I anticipate within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have an actual version, a final version that's been edited. I know that where the numbers are less than 5, they are not reporting, and I've asked them to go ahead and get a number in there. At least to indicate less than 5. So I am seeing that I have really quickly, I have Senator Gossage, and then I have Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, with the agreement of some of the conferees and the discussion, given what Senator Erickson was talking about yesterday, I totally agree that we should have some sort of an amendment that does cap this better. Okay. I haven't decided or formulated what I think that should be, but I definitely don't think we should keep the 150% in there. I think that we should look at something much smaller than that. Not wanting to revisit every single year, but I do think it's definitely something that should be addressed, but I'm not prepared to do that today.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We'll address Senator Sykes' question or comment. And I think, let's go ahead with Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm not opposed to a cap. I think when we're looking at this, I think we need to be very sensitive so that students who are receiving this, that we're not kind of giving them a cliff and where they feel they're going to receive this for this program. And then, I mean, granted, we do have to go through the appropriations process, but I think we do need to make sure that they're grandfathered in and not going to lose this, because we're putting them through to build the workforce on these high wage, high demand, critical need. So I would hate to kind of pull the carpet out from them.
Okay. And so here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow, remember, our committee meeting is not in here, but it's going to be on, help me, second floor or third floor rotunda? Third floor rotunda. We will be joint with the House. It's going to be our Teachers of the Year that we will hear from. So if we could please, Senator Solentrop, can you work to make sure that we have some type of amendment that we can on Thursday address, take action on, and get it pushed out? Yes, Senator Solentrop.
Madam Chair, I may withdraw my conceptual amendment. It may be a time limit, such as 6 years or something of that nature. But I will pull together an amendment to address that issue.
And I
Is that
think
okay?
it's more than fine.
Okay.
Any committee member can come up with any amendment. I would say that if there are those of you that are wanting a cap, get together, decide what that cap is so that we have a couple discussion points. I have been asked if the committee, so tomorrow when we have our Teachers of the Year, are we willing to sponsor, what is it, to sponsor? Oh, to sponsor the resolution. So do I have a motion for the committee to sponsor the resolution? Senator Petty, seconded by Senator Gossage. All those in favor, aye? And thank you very much. That passes unanimously, and we are adjourned because we need to be on the floor.